Hello again, everybody. It's Jerry Slater, and I am here with a newbie in town, but really not that new. I'm very happy to be here with Bryan Riley, who is the principal of the Prescott School. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I appreciate it.
Now, Bryan, you started this summer?
Yes, I started back July 1st. So moved up from Washington, D.C. towards the end of June. Quick transition right into the new job here at the Prescott.
Awesome. Now, we're gonna go back and then we'll go forward a
Sure.
little bit. But we're not gonna go way back because we will get to your Norwood background.
Perfect.
But you mentioned Washington, D.C. I
Yes.
think you went to school,
Yes.
American?
Yep, I went to American University, studied government as an undergrad, and went right into a master's program there in education. Loved it, loved the city. I was there for almost 15 years. Worked in the school system in Washington, D.C. public schools for 10 as an assistant principal, teacher in the classroom, and loved every minute of it. It was a great experience for me.
Super. So what made you want to come back to Norwood?
I think there's a lot of things. I was at the point in DC where it was either sort of commit to staying another 15 years or so and find myself a principalship, but all my family is still in the Boston area, and I've got a nephew and a niece, and so being within driving distance to them rather than an hour plane ride meant a lot to me. And it's also a big draw coming to Massachusetts and the best school system in the country. For me, that was important. It was a great opportunity that this position came up.
Super. Well, we're obviously very glad you're here.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll scroll backwards. There isn't and in fact, you're very active on social media
Yeah.
as well. So I happen to see some of your references
Yes.
to Cleveland School Kids.
Yes. I grew up in Norwood over on Devon Road. Went to the Cleveland School, kindergarten through 5th grade, and then off to what was then the junior high and over to Norwood High School. Fantastic experience for me, and I think all of us as educators, when we look back on our experience, we can name all of our elementary school principals and teachers, and middle school, same thing. And so, it's a great chance to give back to a town where I grew up that I really loved. And I joke now that, coming into the Prescott, there's a lot of reminders of the Cleveland, similar setup, and sometimes I have to check and say, wait a minute, where am I? And so it's been great being back here.
Super. Well, and you grew up on a great street.
Yes.
That's a topic for another
Yeah.
day. So you're here now since July.
Mhm.
You're following, and we've got to mention our good friend Bryan
Mhm.
Killian, Mrs. Killian, who was just a part of the lifeblood
Yep.
here. Early observations. What are you seeing? What are you excited about?
Yeah,
What are you-
absolutely.
what are you trying to maybe change a little bit?
Absolutely. So for me, as a new principal and coming into a new state where there's different things going on and different expectations, following a principal that was as strong as Principal Killian is such a benefit for me. The instructional culture here, the students, the expectations that families have, which are high of the school, is the groundwork that Principal Killian laid, and now I'm sort of trying to take that baton and keep it moving. And the exciting things are, that we've got a staff here that comes to work every day ready to do what's best for the kids. And some days that is fun, exciting, and you move forward, and other days it's tough. But what we're establishing here is a community of professionals and learners who are curious about improving their craft, who care about the kids, and who are willing to go out and try things. And my approach has been, if you try something and it fails, that's great. Let's talk about how we can, improve that the next time and do what's best for our kids. And so it's been a huge benefit to me, also in the meantime of reaching out to Principal Killian and asking for advice. And she stopped by a couple times, and I've picked her brain. So it's great to also have someone who's still around and willing, and we want her to come back and be a part of the community still.
Yeah, and you've got also some great here in Norwood, some of your fellow principals, even some of our Norwood, you've got Donna Brown up
Yep.
at the Callahan.
Yeah, and that's something that I think was an added benefit, that when you go to a new job or a new school system, you hope that you have teammates and colleagues at your level who you sort of mesh with and you're able to bounce ideas off of and be really candid with and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, how do I deal with it, or get advice. I really couldn't have asked for a better group of colleagues at the elementary level. We're always picking up the phone or texting each other and saying, hey, this is what's going on, what are you doing? Or just this morning I was emailing with another principal at the MCAS schedule, and I never feel like, oh, I shouldn't ask that because I don't have anyone out there. And so it's a great, it really is a great group that I've enjoyed. And again, that's sort of an added benefit that you hope, you cross your fingers if that's the case, but here it certainly was.
So now, as you take over at the Prescott, and it sounds like you're giving a nod to prior administration and going forward. What are your priorities here?
Yeah. Priority number one is continuing to develop that instructional culture. This year we started, and we were fortunate to have Superintendent Thompson here last week doing instructional rounds with us. And so oftentimes when you think of rounds, you think of doctors' offices where they all sort of are hospitals, where they all visit different things and talk about cases. And we're really bringing that model here to the schools. So walking with a team of teachers and visiting different classrooms and saying, okay, how can we take things from that classroom and incorporate us into our own practice in our classroom? Or, hey, I have a challenge with this sort of aspect. Now let me see how these other professionals do it. It's those sort of things I think that are out there that I've had the benefit of implementing in previous districts that now I'm trying to bring to Norwood. And the second thing that's really student focused is really making sure that our kids are challenged. We have a lot of bright kids who are curious in different areas, and so I think for us as a team it's really figuring out, do we have the resources and the knowledge to push those kids? Some of the exciting things we're thinking about is project-based learning, and so how do we sort of allow kids to maybe have a little choice in what they're studying, not totally, but have some choice and then really dig in. And the sort of leverage and the vehicle that we have is the technology. The video club here is still strong. We have the yearbook club. And so saying, okay, how do we package all of that together to really get kids curious, but also put out a product that is great. And we're fortunate in town here to have a great TV program that then kids, when they get curious here, there's a little bit of interest that then they can continue on at the secondary level.
Okay, so thank you for the shameless plug.
Absolutely.
What about social emotional? That's obviously, especially in elementary school, that's a big focus.
Yes.
What are you hoping to do around that?
Yeah, so that was a lot of my work in my previous school, was setting up a social emotional learning program and figuring out how can we focus on that, how can we make sure that we're educating the whole child. And I think that our kids that we have now are different than when I went to school. And I think for some people that is easy to understand, and when they come into a building they see, wow, this is a different group, they have different needs. But I think looking at the focus of our teachers and saying, okay, how do we make sure that our classroom communities are well established, are welcoming places, and are also places where kids feel like they can take risks, with the understanding that a lot of our kids are coming to school with different experiences at home. And we have a great school adjustment counselor here who's here half-time, and we're starting to really dig into how do we look at texts, so kids' books, and say, let's look at this character, what are the struggles that the character is going through, and then if you as a student were in that same position, how might you deal with that? And for some kids that sort of comes natural and saying, here's how I feel and here's how I would deal with it. And other kids it's not as easy. But I think us as educators, that's an area that we have to focus to make sure that our kids are able to come and be safe and also have the resources later in life to apply those different social emotional competencies to their everyday life.
Well said. At this time of year, and I don't want to date this piece, but the budget is a big talk. I don't know if you've had experience in that down in D.C. with having to figure out how to move the cards around a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's that's where some of the differences come in between, local agencies like Norwood and where I was coming from in Washington, D.C. And in D.C. it was much more sort of flexible, where you're given a little bit more of a pot of money and said sort of staff your building, how your community feels like it needs to be staffed. Obviously a much larger school system. You're talking about 50,000 kids, over 100 schools. And so in Norwood, there's a little bit more collaboration, which I think is a benefit. We sit down as administrators and say sort of where can we pull and where can we take and how can we make our community better. And we know that while we may have competing interests in some, at the end of the day we're educating the kids of Norwood, and the kids who go to the Callahan, the Oldham, the Cleveland, at the end of the day they're all of our kids. And so I think that there's that collaboration which we talked about earlier that comes into sort of say where can we give and take to hopefully make it so that all the schools are a great place for kids to be.
So we're gonna toggle a little bit to from Mr. Riley to Bryan, hometown kid who's back. But I do want to ask you, I see that you're very active on Twitter in particular. how are you using that? How are you incorporating that?
Yeah, so it's my goal to sort of use social media to give people an insight into what's going on in the building, what's going on in the town, where sort of I am. And so it's sometimes you don't necessarily think of that, where we have some of our first grade students who knows, might not have known that last night was the Festival of the Bands. And I was there with Principal Brown and Principal Frazek, and it was a great night. Not what I expected in terms of the mass of players at once. But it's those sort of things where, hopefully that's planting a seed for some of the other people who are looking at it and saying, wow, I never knew that existed. And so it's really pulling back the curtain and saying, this is what's going on at the Prescott. What I've told everyone is there's fantastic things that happen in this building every single day. And that's a credit to the teachers that come to work and are creative and collaborate with each other and bring in some of these things from the outside of maybe things they haven't done. And like I said before, they're going to try and maybe it will work and maybe it won't. But I think that the general public outside of Norwood may not know that those things exist. So I'm hoping to shed a little bit of light on that.
Twitter handle?
It is Riley Principal.
Okay, so make sure you
follow along.
That. We'll follow it now, and we'll probably post something and do a shout out
Absolutely.
to you from NCM. So let me wrap up with a little bit about just folks getting to know you,
Sure.
The person, rather than the principal. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so really reestablishing myself in the area here after being away for 15 years, spent most of my adult life in Washington, D.C. I've been so fortunate to reconnect with teachers, administrators in Norwood, where you get these emails and say, oh my goodness, I haven't talked to that person in years. Reconnecting with people like the vice principal of the high school, Cindy Durain, Kathy Connor-Moen, the director of fine arts, people who I knew when I was in the school system, but really connecting with people and figuring out what Norwood is all about and really getting out there in the community. And part of some of the alumni groups I'm a part of, when I was in high school, I was a madrigal, also participated in some of the bands earlier on, but that network of our music and madrigal alumni is a great network. A lot of my friends in that group have kids in Norwood schools, so it's great seeing a different angle. But I'm here, I love it. I'm a part of Norwood, although I'm not living in Norwood. I'm part of the town and hope to reestablish roots and be here for a while. So I've loved every minute of it. And as I say to my teachers and kids, which is sometimes not a benefit, my door's always open, literally. Sometimes you'll have kids coming in like, I didn't get my milk at lunch. Like, okay, let's go get it. But people in the community, if they ever have questions about what's going on or have ideas, my door's always open. The give a call, shoot an email, and I love to engage with the community, whether you're a Prescott district resident or just out there in the general community.
Super. Well, Bryan, we really appreciate you coming on today. Hope that we can come back and check in.
Absolutely.
And see how
we
things
love
are
that.
going. And best of luck here at the Prescott.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it.